Hey guys, tonight we're headed somewhere strangely specific, the streets of Kentucky, where it is, no joke, technically illegal to walk around with an ice cream cone in your back pocket. That's right, not in your hand, not in your mouth, in your back pocket. And as ridiculous as that sounds, you're about to experience it firsthand. The sun's just gone down in this sleepy southern town. The cicadas buzz like a lazy chorus. Your sneakers slap gently against the warm pavement. It's quiet, peaceful even. You're holding a soft serve swirl in one hand, and for reasons unknown even to you, you slide the napkin-wrapped cone into your back pocket. You've got your reasons. Maybe both hands are full. Maybe you're making a TikTok. Doesn't matter, except it does. You feel eyes on you. Somewhere down the block, a curtain twitches. A porch light flickers on. A dog stops barking mid-yap. It's like the town just sensed a disturbance in the force. You are not welcome here anymore. You're breaking a law so specific, so oddly poetic, it might have been written by a tired sheriff with a grudge against dairy. And hey, you probably won't survive this. Not legally, anyway. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. I want to know who's wide awake with me tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't remember how you got here, just that it's warm, and you were craving something sweet. You ducked into a roadside diner shaped like a milk bottle, only to find they don't serve cones, just cups. Still, that didn't stop you. You hit the corner store, grabbed a vanilla waffle cone, and here you are, walking through some small Kentucky town after dark with a frozen treat and nowhere to put it. Maybe you're multitasking. Maybe you're filming a sleepy vlog. Or maybe, just maybe, you're unknowingly poking the bear of an ancient statute so specific it might as well have been written in crayon. That's when it hits you. The sign. It's not flashy, just nailed to a weathered post near the courthouse. No ice cream cones in back pockets. City Ordinance number 387. B. Beneath it, in smaller print. Violators may be subject to fines or confiscation. You stare. Surely it's a joke, but the sign's too old, too brittle to be a prank. And just like that, the cone in your pocket feels less like a convenience and more like contraband. Suddenly, you notice how empty the street has become. A moment ago, you passed a couple pushing a stroller. Now, nothing. The town holds its breath. You can almost hear the creak of a rocking chair slowing to a stop somewhere behind a porch screen. You want to take the cone out, maybe eat it, maybe toss it. But now you're curious. What is this law? Who made it? Why? You spot a narrow alley with a crooked sign that says Local History Society, open late Fridays. The windows glow yellow. Inside, a sleepy volunteer barely looks up as you step in. Dust dances in the lamplight. Maps and faded black and white photos line the walls. "Excuse me," you say softly. "What's with the ice cream law?" The woman squints over her glasses. Then she sighs, like she's told this story too many times, always to tourists, with sticky fingers. "Horse thieves," she says. You blink. "Sorry?" She leans back in her creaky chair. Back in the day, folks used to lure horses away by sticking an ice cream cone in their back pocket. Horses'd follow 'em right out of town. No proof you stole anything. Horse just wandered off behind you. You wait for a chuckle. There isn't one. just a slow blink. She means it. Was a real problem in some counties, she adds. Law never got taken off the books, still technically enforceable. You leave the history room in a trance. Horse thieves. With dessert. It makes no sense, yet here you are. A living reenactment. And now, with every step you take through this moonlit town, you feel like a walking time traveler. Like the ghosts of outlawed dairy bandits are watching over you, amused that someone finally triggered the law again. A door creaks open across the street. An old man peers out, frowns, and mutters something. You hear the word pocket. A younger voice replies, "No, can't be." Not again. You pick up the pace. The cone is melting now, sticky against your jeans. But part of you wants to see this through. What happens if you get caught? Not by police, by the town itself. You pass a rusted newspaper box. The headline on the front reads, "Man fined for cone mishap, 1983. It's yellowed, but visible. Underneath, a subheading. Law remains in effect as community deterrent. What kind of community is deterred by dairy? You duck into a park, hoping for a trash can. But there's a family nearby. Kids. You freeze. What if one of the parents sees the cone? What if they call it in? Is there a number? A hotline? Suddenly, a voice behind you. "Sir?" You jump. It's a teenager in a polo, badge clipped to his belt. Park security. "You got a cone in your pocket?" There it is. You mumble something about hands being full. He nods slowly, unimpressed. "You might want to dispose of that. City code's weird about that kind of thing." You expect him to laugh. He doesn't. Just tips his head toward the nearest trash can and walks away. You stand there for a moment, motionless. Then, slowly, you extract the sagging comb from your back pocket. The napkin's useless now, damp and sticky. You dump it in the bin. The moment it lands, you swear. You hear applause. Not loud, just faint. Echoing. Like a ghost town satisfied its weird little law has been obeyed once more. You leave the park quietly. No more cones in pockets. You've learned your lesson. Or so you think. Because this is only the beginning. You figure the worst is over. No warning, no ticket. Just a subtle shaming from a teen in a polo shirt and a park that watches you like a museum exhibit. That should be enough to call it a night. But something about the whole ordeal itches at your brain like a mosquito trapped in a blanket. Annoying, irrational, and impossible to ignore. So instead of heading back to your motel, you keep walking. The streets are quieter now, yet somehow more alert. It's like the town itself is listening, sniffing even. And as you pass a statue in the town square, some stern-faced man on horseback, you realize you've become obsessed with one stupid question. Why ice cream? The cone? The pocket? The horse? You chew it over like gum that's lost its flavor, but not its grip. This had to start somewhere. There had to be a first time. A day when someone actually used a back pocket cone as bait. The answer, you're told, lies in the county records office. It's open 24 hours because of course it is. The building smells like dust, coffee, and the regret of unpaid parking fines. An exhausted-looking clerk at the front desk raises one eyebrow when you ask for anything related to ice cream cone and horse theft. He doesn't laugh. He doesn't blink. He just says, "Follow me." He leads you to a box labeled Property Ordinances, 1880 to 1920. Inside, brittle pages document the daily weirdness of long-dead townsfolk. Chicken leash laws, beard tax exemptions, a citywide ban on throwing stale biscuits at train conductors. And then, at the very bottom, in faded black ink, August 3rd, 1898, a resolution concerning the unlawful temptation of equine property via frozen confectionery placed in rearward clothing compartments. There it is. The legalese version of "don't put ice cream in your back pocket to steal a horse." The resolution tells a story in fragmented phrases. Young men luring horses from general stores. Innocent appearance but premeditated mischief. Clever misdirection with sweetened bribes. Difficult to prove theft without direct contact. Community petition for deterrent ordinance. You blink. That's it. That's the origin. No dramatic heist. No Wild West gunfight. Just bored troublemakers, a few poorly tethered horses, and a genius loophole. Lure a horse with dessert. Walk away slowly. And when someone yells, shrug and say, "He followed me." And because the cone wasn't in your hand, because there was no rope, no lasso, no fingerprints, you couldn't technically be charged with theft. Just coincidence, officer. Just a man with a sweet tooth and a charming trail of vanilla footprints. So the law was born, not to stop real criminals, but to plug a hole in reality. A hole no one expected. A hole shaped like a waffle cone. You sit down in the records room, trying to imagine it. A dusty road. A wooden general store. A horse idling outside, swishing flies with its tail. A young man in suspenders, whistling innocently, sliding a cone into his back pocket as he walks by. The horse lifts its head, sniffs the air, follows. The kid doesn't look back, just strolls on. A few streets later, the horse's owner comes running. "Hey, that's my horse." The boy turns, startled. "He followed me." And technically, that's true. You laugh softly, drawing a side eye from the clerk. He shrugs. You wouldn't believe the stuff people got away with back then. You believe it now. Because this isn't about ice cream anymore. It never was. It's about loopholes. About the lengths people will go to bend the rules without quite breaking them. You realize that every strange law has a heartbeat, something human pulsing beneath the absurdity. You thank the clerk and step back out into the night. The air smells sweeter now. Or maybe that's just your imagination playing tricks. Either way, your thoughts are swirling like soft serve. People used to steal horses with ice cream cones. And the law wasn't mad about the theft. It was mad about the cleverness. You walk past an old stable-turned-coffee shop, its sign painted to resemble a horseshoe. A mural on the side wall shows a cartoon cowboy slipping a cone into his pocket while a horse giggles behind him. Someone has written, "Don't tempt me," under it in Sharpie. You smile. This town hasn't forgotten. You notice now how many things in this place seem horse-aware. Hitching posts used as flower stands, horse-shaped benches. A diner called the Saddle and Syrup. There's a theme here. This isn't just a weird footnote in history. This law shaped the town, cemented a piece of identity, like a joke told so often it became religion. And for all its silliness, you start to admire it. Because what kind of community keeps a law like this? Not out of fear, not out of necessity, but out of sheer commitment to weirdness, to legacy, to the idea that a story, even a stupid one, deserves to stick around. You head back toward your motel, mind buzzing. You were expecting a chuckle and a fun fact. Instead, you found the ghost of a prankster culture so clever it had to be legally spanked. The motel sign flickers in the dark. Vacancy, free Wi-Fi, no cones allowed in pockets. You pause. That last bit's a sticker. Someone, somewhere, still cares enough to enforce the joke. And as you reach into your jacket pocket for your room key, you feel something cold. You freeze. You didn't. You couldn't have. You pull it out slowly. It's a second cone. Still wrapped. Still firm. And you have no memory of buying it. You stare at it. And somewhere far off, a horse whinnies. You stare at the cone like it's ticking, a soft-serve time bomb in sugar armor. No idea how it got there, no receipt, no melting trail of events leading up to this moment. Just there. You think back? Maybe the teen park guard slipped it in as a joke? Maybe the old lady at the History Society gave it to you and you subconsciously pocketed it? But those would require memory. And this cone doesn't feel like a memory. It feels like a message. You check your motel key. Room 106. The hallway inside smells like old carpet and wet air conditioning. You walk with the cone in hand now, refusing to let it ride shotgun in your back pocket again. Lesson learned. Hopefully. You enter the room, drop the key on the dresser, and flip on the light. A single bulb sputters overhead. Nothing fancy. A bed with a floral bedspread, a chair that's more decorative than functional, and a laminated sheet of rules taped to the nightstand. You sit. The cone's still firm. Chilling in both senses of the word. Maybe you're overtired. Maybe you're entering the phase where travel exhaustion and sugar hallucinations become one. You lie back on the bed. The fan hums overhead like it's trying to lull you into a coma. You stare at the ceiling. And then, slowly, it happens. You start to dream. Not a soft, fuzzy dream. Not the kind where you're flying or back in high school naked or eating waffles on a spaceship. No, this one's structured. Like your brain is staging a reenactment with foggy actors and underfunded sets. You're in a courthouse, but not the kind with metal detectors and bored bailiffs. No, this one has oil lamps, wooden benches, and a judge who looks like someone taxidermied Colonel Sanders. His powdered wig is sliding off one side. His gavel is more of a meat tenderizer. And you're on trial. The charge? Possession of a frozen dessert with intent to influence equine behavior. The courtroom murmurs. A woman gasps. A small child drops a hobby horse in fear. The prosecutor, a tall man with a mustache so aggressive it deserves its own zip code, paces dramatically. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he booms, pointing a sticky finger at you. This scoundrel had a cone in his back pocket. A cone! Where your wallet ought to be. Where honor resides. A woman in the front row faints. You stand up, confused. "I wasn't—" Silence. The judge howls, slamming his meat gavel. This is a court of dairy law, not excuses. The prosecutor spins toward the jury box, where a row of townsfolk sit, all clutching tiny cones like microphones. Some of them nod solemnly. One of them, an elderly man with a raccoon on his shoulder, whispers, "He's a danger to livestock." Your defense attorney is a man who looks like he was just handed a law degree in the parking lot. His briefcase is a lunchbox. His tie is a shoelace. He doesn't even stand up. Just offers a slow shrug and says, "Your Honor, my client thought it would be funny." The room erupts in outrage. "You thought you could play the law like a banjo," the judge growls. "You thought you could melt justice with dairy deception. You're sentenced on the spot, not to jail. Oh no. That'd be too modern. You're sentenced to a week in the stocks, holding a melting cone while reciting horse anatomy. Public humiliation as education, the old way." And then, Just like that, the dream shifts. You're not in court anymore. You're in a dimly lit jail cell. Except instead of iron bars, there are freezer doors, each locked, each humming. Inside them, silhouettes of other prisoners. You see vague outlines of people holding milkshakes, popsicles, gelato. Some are asleep, others stare back blankly. A voice whispers from the shadows. They caught me with a rocket pop. In August. You ask how long they've been there. The voice sighs. Long enough to forget what warm feels like. Another figure leans closer, whispering, "Some say this town feeds off the law, like it needs one ridiculous rule to survive. Remove it, and everything melts down." You wake with a jolt. Your motel room is quiet again. The air conditioner drones. The cone is gone. You check the dresser, under the lamp, in your pockets. Nothing. Maybe you ate it in your sleep. Maybe it was never there. You wash your face in the sink. The mirror fogs, despite the cold water. And just as you're about to turn away, something catches your eye. Etched into the glass, barely visible under the condensation, is a single phrase. "He followed me." You stumble back. It's not the words that shake you. It's that they're written backward, as if scrawled from inside the mirror. You dry the mirror with a towel. The words vanish. You check your phone. It's 3:12 a.m. You sit back on the bed, trying to make sense of any of it. But there's a cold pressure in your chest. Not fear exactly. Something weirder. Something like implication. Like you're not just a tourist brushing against history. You've been inducted. You think back to the county record. The law wasn't written to stop crime. It was written to mark belonging. A rite of passage. You survived the pocket cone trial. Maybe now you get to stay. Or maybe you never really leave. You lie back down. But this time, the lights stay on. When you wake, sunlight drips through the slats of the blinds like honey through a cracked jar. The motel hums with a different kind of quiet, the kind that suggests the world has gone on without you. You stretch, rub your eyes, and check the floor. No cone, no wrapper, no sticky trail. The dream is fading already, blurring at the edges like cream stirred into coffee. You sit on the bed a while, letting the fog in your head lift just enough for thought. You still can't explain the cone, or the mirror, or why you feel like you were meant to dream that courtroom, like the law itself put on a show for your benefit. You check out of the motel without incident. The clerk doesn't bat an eye. You want to ask if anything strange has happened lately, if anyone else has gotten caught with a cone. But you don't. You already know the answer. This place doesn't run on logic. It runs on stories. And you're part of one now. You walk through town in the early morning stillness. The streets feel different in daylight, less haunted, but not less strange. You pass a bronze plaque near the library with a horse and a dripping cone engraved in it. No explanation, no names, just the image, like a symbol, a brand. You head toward the historical district where you've heard there's a museum dedicated to local oddities. Of course there is. Every town has one, whether it's a single locked cabinet in the back of a general store or a whole house turned shrine to the bizarre. This one's small, squat, and painted in a color that once tried to be cheerful but lost the will around 1976. A hand-lettered sign on the door reads, "Museum of Unenforceables, $2 admission or one good story." You step inside. The air is thick with lemon pledge and old wood. A bell dings overhead, and a woman appears from behind a curtain. Her hair is braided into a crown, and she wears a name tag that simply says Dot. "You here for the horses or the socks?" she asks. You blink. "Sorry?" She waves a hand. "Most folks come for the cone law, some for the sock tax. Either way, you're in the right place." You hand her $2. She nods. "No stories today?" "Not yet," you say. Dot smiles like she knows something you don't. She leads you through a narrow hallway into a room filled with displays. Taxidermy squirrels posed in courtrooms, traffic cones labeled sacred, a rusted iron frying pan marked first weapon in the Butter Rebellion of '42. And then you see it. The cone exhibit. It's not big, just a glass case with a leather wallet, a horseshoe, and a very old, very sad-looking waffle cone turned fossil. A sign reads, "This cone was discovered in the back pocket of William Henry Fultner, apprehended August 1898, after luring Sheriff Cole's prize mare halfway to Bardstown." There's a sketch of the moment. A lanky young man in suspenders, whistling, hands in his pockets, horse in tow. Behind him, the sheriff shouting in disbelief. Beneath the illustration, a quote, "I didn't touch her. She just followed the smell." You stare at that sentence for a while. The absurdity of it has begun to feel almost holy. You imagine this kid, a local prankster maybe, or a small-time thief with a sweet tooth, realizing he could exploit the natural curiosity of horses and the limited specificity of existing law. A cone in the pocket isn't a crime. A horse following you isn't a crime. But together it becomes legend. You picture him realizing that, testing it, getting bolder, not stealing, just walking, letting the horse do the rest. You imagine the sheriff's rage, the townsfolk's laughter, the hastily gathered council of elders muttering words like moral fabric and frozen entrapment. This wasn't a crime spree. It was performance art with a punchline so sticky it outlived everyone involved. And still, the law stands. You ask Dot if the law's ever been used in modern times. She chuckles. "Twice that we know of. One guy in '83 tried it with a Klondike bar. Didn't end well. And a kid in '99 got fined $5 for making a TikTok before TikTok was even a thing." You ask if it's ever been repealed. "Oh, honey," she says, "you don't repeal art. You preserve it." You wander out of the museum with a new kind of awe, the kind that hums at the edge of folklore. This wasn't just a glitch in the system. It was intentional absurdity carved into legal stone, maintained like a bonsai tree of nonsense. You begin to wonder, how many laws are like this? How many unspoken relics live in the dark corners of local codes? Laws written in frustration or spite or sheer imaginative panic. You pass a barber shop with a handwritten note taped to the window. "No whistling after 8 p.m. Another joke? Another relic? Another truth half forgotten? You're starting to see them everywhere now. Little fractures in the facade of normal. Towns built not just on roads and rules, but on the weird exceptions they decided to keep. You reach the town square again. There's an elderly man feeding pigeons. You ask him about the cone law. He doesn't even look up. "Still on the books," he says. "Still waiting for someone dumb, or lucky, enough to trip it again." You sit beside him. He tosses you some crumbs. The pigeons ignore them. "You know," he says, "the cone thing was never about ice cream. I figured. It was about reminding folks not to be clever at other people's expense. Or horses." He grins. "Exactly." You sit together in silence, pigeons strutting nearby, The morning sun soft and slow across the square. For the first time in a while, you feel completely awake. Later that afternoon, you wander past a row of antique shops, their windows filled with oddities that blur the line between junk and treasure. A porcelain doll with one eye, a taxidermy fish holding a cigar, a jar labeled Authentic Kentucky Air, do not open. All of it seems perfectly normal now, because ever since that museum, your brain has recalibrated. The Cone Law hasn't just altered your understanding of legal history, it's rewired your perception of reality. You don't walk down the street anymore. You scan it, like a detective searching for echoes of forgotten ordinances. A "no loitering with marshmallows" sign wouldn't even make you flinch at this point. That's how you end up at the edge of town, standing outside a place called Sleepy Hollow Mercantile. The sign's painted in old-fashioned lettering, and a rocking chair sways empty on the porch, though there's no breeze. A bell tinkles as you open the door. Inside, it smells like cinnamon, mothballs, and very old wood. You're greeted by a short man with a spectacular beard and suspenders, who waves you in with a sleepy smile. His name tag says Ernie. "You here for the loophole?" he asks. You blink. "What?" He chuckles. "The cone loophole. You're not the first." You hesitate. "So it's real?" "Was. Still is, technically. You ever hear of sleepwalking defenses?" You nod. "Barely." "Well," he says, "years ago, someone found a legal workaround. If you're sleepwalking when you put the cone in your pocket, you didn't mean to. No intent, no crime." You pause. "Someone actually tried that?" "Tried it?" He leans in. "Got away with it." You follow him to a dusty corner of the store, where an old rocking horse sits beneath a cracked photograph. In it, a young man stands proudly next to a sheriff, cone in hand, grin so wide it might split his face. Beneath the photo, a brass plate reads, "Leonard Crane, first to beat the cone law in his sleep, 1947. You look back at Ernie. "How do you sleepwalk with an ice cream cone?" He shrugs. "Leonard said he always dreamed of dessert. One night, he sleepwalked into town, stole a cone from a diner freezer, and stuck it in his overalls. Walked past the mayor's horse. The horse followed him for 2 blocks before the sheriff woke up." "And they didn't charge him?" "Oh, they wanted to," Ernie grins. "But his mama swore he'd been sleepwalking since birth. Local doctor vouched. The court dropped the charges. Next day, Leonard became a folk hero." You stare at the photo. Something about Leonard's eyes. They sparkle like he knows he cheated the universe and got away with it. You ask Ernie what happened to him. He shrugs. "Kept sleepwalking. One night he tried to smuggle a sundae into church. They wrote a whole hymn about it. This town is full of people like Leonard. People who dance through the spaces between the lines. People who didn't break the law so much as tilt it. And now, your sleep-deprived mind begins to wander. You think about last night's dream, the cone trial, the refrigerator jail, the mirror message. What if you've already started sleepwalking? You ask Ernie if anyone's ever sleepwalked into reenacting the cone crime. He gives you a long look. "Let me guess," he says. "You had a cone this morning you don't remember buying?" Your heart skips. You nod. He laughs softly, shakes his head. "It always starts like that." You're not sure whether to be comforted or horrified. He hands you a small pamphlet from behind the counter. It's handwritten, titled, "For Those Touched by the Cone." Inside are tips for navigating what it calls cone-induced somnambulism. Stuff like tie a ribbon to your freezer door handle, keep both hands outside the blanket while sleeping, never wear pants with back pockets to bed, avoid caramel before sunset. It's ridiculous. Except it's not. Not anymore. As you walk out of the mercantile, the wind picks up, carrying the faint sound of a horse's hooves. You turn instinctively, but there's nothing. Just a rustling tree and the creak of a hanging sign. You spend the rest of the day hyper-aware. You don't eat dairy. You check your back pockets every 10 minutes. You avoid long walks. You nap with one eye open. But when night falls again, the urge returns. Not hunger, not thirst, just a need. You feel drawn to something. You don't know what. The town's different after dark. Familiar shops look ominous. Street lamps hum louder than they should. You see other people out walking, most alone, most quiet. You begin to wonder how many of them are even awake. And then, at the edge of the park, you see her. A girl, maybe 16, pajamas, barefoot, moving slowly, deliberately, like she's underwater. In her back pocket, a cone. You approach cautiously. "Hey, are you okay?" She doesn't answer, just keeps walking. From behind a hedge, a horse appears. You freeze. It's not saddled, not tethered, just there. Quiet, massive, watchful. The girl keeps walking. The horse follows. You don't know what to do. Intervene? Scream? Call someone? But something deep inside you says, don't. You watch as they disappear down the hill, swallowed by fog and moonlight. When you turn around, you're holding something cold. A cone. Again. You didn't buy it. You didn't pick it up. You're sleepwalking. Wide awake. The cone is in your hand. You stare at it. Plain vanilla. Perfectly swirled. The kind of cone no store has made since 1982. The kind with paper so thin you can see the imprint of your fingers through it. You blink slowly. You're standing under a street lamp that hums louder now, like it knows something. Your other hand is empty. Your feet are bare. You don't remember taking your shoes off. You don't remember where the cone came from. A deep chill crawls up your spine. Not fear, exactly. Something older. Something like realization. You are no longer a witness to the law. You are part of it. Your first instinct is to throw the cone away. But your hand doesn't move. Not because you're frozen in place, but because your body, somehow, is cooperating with a dream you don't remember entering. You take a step forward, then another. The night is oddly quiet. None of the usual town noise. No cars, no TV buzz from houses, no insects, just that buzzing street lamp and the occasional wind ripple in the grass. And then, you hear the clip-clop. You turn. Out of the fog, a horse emerges. Its coat is dark and smooth, its breath curling in the cool night air. No saddle, no reins, just calm, unbothered silence, like it's been summoned, not startled. It stares at the cone in your hand and follows. Your brain is screaming at you, put the cone down, walk away, snap out of this. But your body moves like it's rehearsing an old play, one written long before you were born. You walk slowly, leading the horse down Main Street like it's the most natural thing in the world. No one stops you. The town is asleep, or pretending to be. You pass the courthouse. Its windows are dark, but the flag still flaps gently on the pole, even though there's no wind. You pass the park, where the swing sways by itself. You walk past the museum, the mural of the boy and the sheriff, the silent rocking horse inside the shop window. And still, the horse follows. You remember the pamphlet from Ernie. It always starts like this. You wonder what comes next. The street ends at the river. There's a wooden bridge, old but sturdy, that arcs over the slow-moving water. You step onto it. The boards creak beneath you. The horse hesitates at the edge, then steps on behind you. Halfway across the bridge, you stop, not because you choose to, because you feel observed. From the other side of the bridge, a shape emerges. A man in a wide-brimmed hat, long coat, and a badge shaped like a cone. No words, just presence. He raises one hand and points, not at you, but at the cone. You look down. It's melting, but not in the normal way, not with drips and warmth. It's disintegrating, like sugar turning to ash. You try to drop it, but your hand won't let go. Behind you, the horse lets out a soft, uncertain snort. The man steps forward. "You invoked it," he says, his voice dry as old paper. "I didn't mean to," you manage. "No one does," he replies. "But now you're holding the law that wouldn't melt." He nods toward the horse. He's been waiting. You turn. The horse is staring at you. No fear, no judgment, just recognition. "I'm not trying to steal it," you say. The man tilts his head. "Don't matter. The law don't need intention, only ritual." "What happens now?" The man looks up at the sky. "Now we see if you're the one to carry it forward, or the one who gets left behind." The cone vanishes from your hand. Not melts, vanishes, like it was never real. You look down. Your pocket is empty. The horse exhales. The bridge creaks. You turn back, but the man is gone. No sound, no steps, just fog curling where he stood. You look at the horse again. It doesn't move, just waits. "Go home," you whisper. And it does. You watch as it walks back across the bridge, disappears into the town. You stand alone. The river below gurgles softly. Somewhere, a bell chimes. One note, out of tune. You walk back into town. There are lights on now. The buzz of TVs. The smell of bacon from someone's kitchen. The swing is still. The mural unchanged. But something has shifted. You return to your motel. The clerk greets you like you never left. In your room, the mirror is clean. No message, no condensation. But there's a postcard on your pillow. It shows a horse standing beside a cone-shaped tree. No text. You flip it over. There's a date scrawled in black ink, August 3rd. You lie on the bed, unsure if you're dreaming again. But something in your chest is calm. The ritual has passed. The law has acknowledged you. The pamphlet from Ernie had one final line, barely legible at the bottom. Some laws aren't meant to be obeyed or broken, just remembered. And somehow, you know you will. Morning comes, and the town is back to normal. Or what passes for normal in a place where frozen desserts once determined the direction of livestock. You eat breakfast at a cafe shaped like a grain silo. The waitress greets you like a regular. She doesn't ask why your shirt smells faintly of vanilla. You order black coffee, eggs, toast, no dairy. You're not ready. As you stir the bitter coffee, you glance at the local paper someone left on the next table. The headline reads, "City Council debates repeal of obsolete laws, Cone Clause under review." You stare at it, heart doing a strange slow roll in your chest. The article is short. A few council members propose cleaning up the town's legal code. Most of the laws in question are exactly the kind of dusty absurdities you'd expect. No neckties on Thursdays, no harmonica after dusk. But one name stands out in bold, Ordinance 387B, frozen dessert in rear pocket clause. They're thinking about striking it. You fold the paper, finish your coffee, and leave without paying. Not because you're skipping the bill, but because the waitress has already waved you off. You're good, she says. On the house. It's your week. Your week? You don't ask. Outside, you feel the pulse of the town in a new way. You no longer see its strangeness from the outside. You feel woven into it, like you've stepped into a dream that never ends, where the landmarks shift just slightly when you're not looking. You pass a group of teenagers sitting on a bench. One of them has a cone in his back pocket. They laugh like it's nothing, like it's a dare. But you know better. One of them meets your eyes. The laughter quiets. He pulls the cone out, hands sticky, nervous. Just messing around. You give him a small nod. Be careful, you say. They laugh again, but it's thinner now, more uncertain. You keep walking, unsure what you've become. Not a local, not quite a visitor, something between. You find yourself drawn to the old stable on the edge of town, now a hardware store. A painted sign above the entrance still reads, "Tether here." You push open the door, half expecting a bell that neighs instead of rings. But it's just a soft chime. Inside, a tall man behind the counter looks up. He has the same calm weight as the sheriff from your dream. His name tag says, Russ. "You're looking for rope?" he asks. "No," you say, surprising yourself. "Information." He nods, like that's the real business here. You ask him what happens if they repeal the cone law. He sighs, slow and long. "We lose more than a joke," he says. "We lose the memory of why it was written, of what it warned against." You tilt your head. "And what was that?" He smiles, sad and soft. "That cleverness is power, and power attracts mischief." You tell him about the cone, the horse, the man on the bridge. He doesn't blink. "Sounds like it marked you." "For what?" he considers. "To carry it, until someone else's pocket earns the weight." You leave with nothing but a receipt that says, "For services rendered." No item, just that phrase. You head back to the square, feeling that the law is not just old, it's alive. Breathing in the sidewalks, blinking through the flickering street lamps, whispering through the slats in the wooden fences. It's not about horses anymore. It never really was. It's about the spaces between sense and nonsense, and how sometimes those spaces need a guardian. That afternoon, you attend the city council meeting. You don't plan to speak, but you do. They call for public comment. You raise your hand. You tell the story, not the dream version, not the magic, but the history, the absurdity, the importance, the way it has shaped the town's soul. Some laugh, some nod. One member wipes away a tear. No one mentions horses. When the vote comes, they table the repeal. The law stays. Not enforced, not endorsed, just remembered. That night, you walk the streets one last time. No cone, no dream, just quiet. You pass the mural, the courthouse, the bridge. At the edge of the woods, you see a shape. Not a man, not quite. It tips its hat, then vanishes into the trees. You don't follow. You've earned your exit. You lie down that night not in fear, but in peace. Because now you understand. Some laws were never meant to punish. Some laws are lullabies, whispered by old towns. To people just like you. You leave town the next morning with the kind of quiet you don't find in cities. Quiet that sticks to your ribs, like campfire smoke or lullabies. The road curves away from the town like a sigh, and for a long stretch, you don't even turn on the radio. You just listen to the hum of the tires, the low rhythm of wind sliding past your windows. But you keep checking your rearview mirror, not for cars, for horses. It's silly, you tell yourself. But so is the law. So is everything that just happened. And yet, every so often, a shadow flickers across the side of the road. A tree, probably. A mailbox. A deer. You keep telling yourself it's nothing. But when you stop for gas 2 hours later, you check the back seat. Just to be sure, it's empty. But in the side pocket of the passenger door, a napkin. Folded. Slightly sticky. Smelling faintly of vanilla. You don't remember it being there. You leave it in the trash and keep driving. Hours blur. Towns drift past. The sun begins its slow melt into the horizon. And soon, you're back in familiar territory. Fast food signs, billboards, streetlights that don't flicker. The normal world, full of taxes and passwords and streaming subscriptions. And yet, you feel different inside it. You realize something. It's not about that one town. You start noticing things again, like you did on that first weird night. A sign outside a laundromat. No washing of horse blankets after 9 p.m. A note on a diner chalkboard. Don't feed raccoons during happy hour. A hotel rulebook listing. All guests must sleep with at least 1 foot on the floor. You start to understand. Every town has one. A leftover law, a fossilized prank, a strange little shrine to the past. And maybe, just maybe, they're all connected, like pressure points on a sleeping giant. Together they hum with some forgotten logic. A system of nonsense that protects something older than rules. You pull into a small town for the night, one you've never heard of, tucked between 2 exits and an abandoned gas station. You ask the motel clerk if they've got any strange laws here. She doesn't look up, just says, "Don't sleep facing east." That's all. You nod. Ask no questions. Take a west-facing room. You lie awake for a while, staring at the ceiling, thinking of everything you've seen, everything you've felt. You're not sure if you were chosen or just unlucky, but you're starting to believe that the law itself woke up for you. And now it's watching, not to punish, but to see what you'll do next. You drift into sleep eventually, but your dreams are different now, quieter, no courtroom, no horses, just the slow, distant sound of hooves, like a heartbeat under your pillow. In the morning, you pack your bag and find something tucked in the side pocket. Another postcard. This one shows a different town. A statue of a man holding an ice cream cone like a torch, his pocket bulging slightly. A horse frozen mid-step behind him. The back simply reads, "Next stop, no address, no sender." But you know what it means. This doesn't end in one town or one law. This is a pilgrimage, a strange kind of sleepwalking, not through dreams, but through history, through places where absurdity is memory and memory is sacred. You get in the car. You drive. The next town welcomes you with a sign that reads, "No yawning during parades." And just like that, the story begins again. You don't plan to stay in the "no yawning during parades" town for more than a night. Just gas, a sandwich, maybe some sleep if the mattress isn't lumpy and haunted. But the sign, it hooks you. Like a fish snagged by the world's laziest worm. You park in front of the town hall and walk to the clerk's office, hoping for some pamphlet, some dusty exhibit, anything that will explain why yawning became punishable during public celebration. Instead, you find a sleepy man behind a counter and a fan that clicks every third rotation like it's trying to remember how to die. You ask about the yawn law. He sighs. Yeah, Parade Ordinance 14B, still active, technically. You blink. Why? He gestures to a bulletin board plastered with faded photos. It's about morale. Goes back to 1911. Town threw a parade for our one and only local war hero. Whole street full of people. And in the front row, a kid yawned. You wait. That's it? He yawned big. Open mouth. Big stretch. Right as the brass band marched by. Soldier saw it. Thought he was bored. Took offense. Left the parade. Moved to Ohio. We never had another hero after that. So they banned yawning? He shrugs. They tried banning boredom first. Didn't stick. Too abstract. So they focused on the symptom. You suppress a yawn yourself, ironically. Any fines? Technically, yes. But mostly we just shame you. Someone rings a bell. It's very passive-aggressive. You thank him and leave, a little dazed. Outside, kids are chalking stick figures on the sidewalk. One of them draws a parade float shaped like a cat. Another draws someone yawning in the crowd with an X over their face. Even the children know. You find a motel just off Main Street. This one has carpet that's doing its best impression of moss, and curtains that have long since accepted their fate. But the bed is soft, and the air smells like detergent and old cedar. You lie down and stare at the ceiling. Your mind spins, not about the yawning, but about the cone again. It keeps returning, like a song stuck on repeat just below hearing range. You drift off, but not into sleep, into involvement. You're no longer a dreamer stumbling through other people's weirdness. You are now the one being followed, not by horses, not by laws, but by their memory. Because the cone isn't a dessert anymore. It's a signal, a summons. And as if summoned, your dream shifts again. You're back in a courtroom. But this one is different. No judge, no jury. Just a long hallway lined with strange portraits. One shows a man asleep in a hammock with a rooster on his chest. Another, a woman brushing her teeth in handcuffs. You recognize them. Not the people, the stories, the laws, the lives you've touched, or been touched by. At the end of the hallway, a mirror. You walk toward it. Inside the mirror, you see yourself, but different. Your pockets are full, bulging, overloaded, not just with cones, but with objects of offense. A duck whistle, a bottle of pickles, a rubber glove. You don't understand all of them. Not yet, but you will. Behind you in the reflection, a parade marches, silent. You turn around. No one's there. You look back at the mirror, still marching. You try to yawn. You can't. Not in this world. You wake up gasping, genuinely gasping, like someone let you back into your body too fast. Your throat is dry. Your tongue feels like a paper towel. You reach for water, knock over the motel lamp, and suddenly the whole room floods with artificial yellow. The napkin is back, on your chest. You unfold it. One word. Next. That's all. Not signed, not stained. No scent of vanilla this time. But you know what it means. You check out before sunrise. You ask no questions. You just drive. The next town has a giant chicken statue at the entrance and a sign that says, "Do not fall asleep near statues after dusk." You park, smile, and whisper to yourself, "Of course." The chicken statue stares at you like it knows something you don't. Big round eyes, beak slightly open, one wing raised mid-flap, frozen in a pose that somehow feels less like celebration and more like warning. You sit in your car a while, engine ticking down, watching how the early morning light slides across the statue's surface. The sign next to it is simple. Do not fall asleep near statues after dusk. Municipal Code 12-406. Underneath that, in smaller lettering, someone scrawled in black marker, "They remember things we don't." You're too tired to resist the pull. You find a diner. order eggs you won't finish, drink coffee that tastes like warm regret. And then you walk the town, asking about the law. No one laughs. In fact, no one even questions it. You stop a man mowing his lawn, ask about the sign. He cuts the engine. Back in '62, he says, wiping sweat from his forehead, a guy fell asleep under the Lincoln statue at the courthouse. Next morning, he couldn't remember his name. Spoke Latin fluently, though. Latin, you nod slowly. He was from Kansas, never even took Spanish. But boom, overnight scholar of the Roman Republic. You try to confirm if it really happened. Oh, it happened, he says. We don't go near statues after dusk anymore, not unless we have to. The air feels heavier now, like the town is padded in velvet fog. Even the wind moves quieter here. You spend the afternoon in the town library, thumbing through newspapers and old minutes from city council meetings. You find the law's origin in a faded transcript from 1963. In the interest of public safety and mental clarity, the town hereby forbids sleep within 20 feet of any publicly displayed statue between dusk and dawn, under penalty of fine or appropriate metaphysical adjustment. That's the phrase, metaphysical adjustment. You stare at it. It stares back. You check into a motel next to a petting zoo, the kind that doubles as a fireworks stand on holidays. Your room smells like straw and lavender, and you pretend not to notice that the wallpaper has an oddly chicken-like pattern. You lie down. Lights off, curtains drawn, and yet you feel watched. You dream. This time, you are the statue, frozen mid-step, hand raised, face carved into some expression you didn't choose. People pass you, some toss coins, some take selfies. None of them look you in the eyes, because your eyes are wrong. They move. You try to speak, but your mouth is cement. You try to gesture, but your limbs are locked in bronze. Time passes. Seasons shift. You remain. Until one night, someone falls asleep at your feet. A teenager. Hoodie. Backpack for a pillow. And you feel hungry. Not for food. For memory. For something soft and flickering inside the sleeper's head. You reach for it. Not with hands, but with presence. With the long, slow weight of your watching. And you take it. Just a little. A name. A favorite snack. A lost birthday party. Not enough to destroy. Just enough to taste. You wake in a cold sweat. Your pillow is on the floor. Your motel window is open, though you don't remember touching it. And on your nightstand, where you left nothing, sits a small figurine. It's a miniature of the chicken statue, made of salt. You touch it, and it crumbles instantly, vanishing like it was never solid. You leave town before sunrise. No questions, no map. The next place finds you. It's marked by a billboard so faded it barely holds words. Welcome to Halter Creek, where it's illegal to sleep with socks on. You nod. Of course it is. You drive in slowly, already wondering what version of reality waits for you there. You roll into Halter Creek just after noon, socks still on but suddenly feeling like contraband. The town is quiet in the way a place is when it's watching you. Not suspicious, not hostile, just expectant. The sign on the outskirts is painted in soft blue cursive, adorned with daisies and an oddly official seal featuring a single sock crossed out with a red X beneath it. Another plaque reads, "No sleeping while socked. Town Code Section 91B. Feet must breathe free." You smirk, but only a little. At this point, the absurdity isn't surprising anymore. It's ritual. You've learned that in these towns, the strangeness isn't the punchline. It's the structure. the scaffolding of a different logic. A logic where the line between sleep and sin depends on your wardrobe choices. You head to a diner called the Barefoot Bean, where the waitress is shoeless and the floor is polished like a bowling lane. She greets you with a smile and two questions. What'll it be? And socks or no socks? You hesitate. She nods knowingly. We don't judge. We just don't serve soup to the socked. You order black coffee and grilled cheese. No soup. The booth beside you is occupied by two older men playing chess. One's barefoot. The other has a sock dangling from his pocket like a white flag. You catch snatches of conversation. Last guy who slept socked said he dreamed of drowning in wool. They say your dreams get too warm. You start sweating memories. You don't interrupt. You just listen. After lunch, you walk to the town hall. The clerk behind the desk looks like he's been waiting his whole life to answer your question. Yes, he says, before you even finish. The sock law is still in effect, passed in 1952 after a string of incidents. You raise an eyebrow. Incidents? He gestures to a corkboard labeled feet-related events. Newspaper clippings, photographs of mismatched shoes, a portrait of a mayor standing next to a pile of burnt socks. People reported bad dreams, the clerk continues. Nightmares. Waking up confused, thinking they were still dreaming. Couldn't tell reality from rest. You ask, so the socks? Cause that? Not the socks themselves, he says, lowering his voice. The confinement. Your feet are the last thing to touch the world before you sleep. They remember the ground. If you lock them up, you sever the tether. You want to laugh, but don't. You've seen enough by now to know. Every weird law has a root system. However ridiculous the fruit, the roots always run deep. You check into a bed and breakfast run by a woman named Trudy, who insists you take a complimentary foot soak before bed. Lavender, she says, clears the mind. There's a list of rules posted on the door of your room. You scan past the usual. No smoking, no candles, no loud music after 10 p.m., no socks in bed, or we call the sheriff. You smile. Not a joke. That night, you undress slowly. You sit at the edge of the bed and peel off your socks like they're evidence. Your feet hit the cold wooden floor with a thunk, and for some reason it feels final, like slamming a gavel. You lie down. The room smells like cedar and peppermint. You pull the blanket over you and wait. Sleep comes, but not like usual. You dream of a corridor lined with socks, hundreds, thousands, hanging on little brass hooks, each labeled with a name and a date. You walk past rows of them, each pair twitching slightly in some unseen breeze. You stop at one, your own, hanging limply, label smudged. You reach for it. Not yet, a voice whispers. You turn. A woman stands behind a counter. Trudy? Number? This version is taller, glowing faintly. Her hands are wrapped in gauze. You haven't earned your pair, she says. What are they? She tilts her head. Memories you haven't walked into yet. The corridor fades. You wake up. The room is warm. The windows cracked. A breeze moves across the floor like a whisper. You glance at your feet. Bare. But on the bedside table, where your socks should be, is a note. You kept the rule. That's enough. For now. It's signed with a tiny symbol. 2 footprints side by side, drawn in ink so pale it looks like shadow. You leave Halter Creek that morning barefoot in your shoes, unsure whether you're growing into something wiser or just deeper into whatever this journey has become. You don't check the map. You follow the pull. And when you arrive in the next town, there's no sign, no welcome, no billboard, just a narrow alley with a message chalked in pink. Don't speak of sleep, especially not to strangers. You smile, of course. You step into the town with the caution of someone entering a library after hours, where the books might wake up if you breathe too loud. There's no name on the welcome sign, if there even was one. The roads aren't empty, but no one walks in pairs. Everyone moves alone, quiet, alert, the way animals do when the woods are louder than they should be. The chalk message at the alley still lingers in your mind. Don't speak of sleep, especially not to strangers. You test it, softly greeting a passerby, asking if there's a motel nearby. The man stares at you blankly for a second too long, then nods once and keeps walking. No answer, just acknowledgement. Like he's marked you, mentally filed you under reckless. You walk on. Even the businesses seem quieter here. Signs are smaller, doors creak less, no neon. The pharmacy is just labeled tonics. The post office is letters. And when you finally find a coffee shop, it's simply called staying awake. You push open the door. Inside, dim lighting, no music, and a single counter covered in cups labeled with numbers, not names. A barista eyes you cautiously. She looks 19 and ageless at the same time. She doesn't greet you. You say, "Coffee, please." She nods, hands you a cup labeled 104. You wait for her to ask for a name, a payment, anything. She just says, "Try not to say the word." The word? A slow blink. Sleep. We don't say it here. You take your cup to a corner booth and nurse the coffee like it's medicine. Strong, bitter, like chewing asphalt. A flyer pinned to the wall reads, "Remember, no mention of unconscious rest, no discussion of states between waking and dreaming, no first-time visitors permitted to nap." It's absurd. But by now, absurdity feels safe, familiar. You ask the barista later why the rule exists. She hesitates, then glances at the ceiling like she's checking for eavesdroppers. "There was an incident," she whispers. "Back in '77, a man came through town asking questions, talking too much, talking about, you know?" You nod. She continues. "He started interviewing people, asking what they dreamed about. Then he fell asleep on a bench. When he woke up," she trails off. "What?" She leans in. "He remembered everyone's dreams. Everyone's. Things they'd never told anyone. Things they didn't remember dreaming." You go cold. "They ran him out of town, but the damage was done. Since then, we've kept it sealed." "Sealed how?" "We keep the word out of our mouths. If you can't speak it, you can't summon it. You don't ask what happens if someone breaks the rule. You already know. You sleep that night in your car on the edge of town, parked beneath a flickering street lamp. Not because there are no rooms. There are. But because something in you knows that any bed in this town would ask questions you don't want to answer. You lie back, hoodie as a pillow, eyes open to the roof of your car. You don't say the word, not even in your head. And yet, you feel it creeping toward you, like fog through a keyhole. That soft warmth, that slow drift. And then it's happening again. You dream, but not like before. You're in a circle of people, seated, silent, eyes open. No one speaks. Above them hovers a shadow, not a person, a presence, constantly shifting, smoke that flickers in and out of faces. Familiar faces. Yours. The others don't notice. They just sit, holding hands, breathing in unison. One of them speaks, barely a whisper. "If you name it, you give it shape." Another. "If you give it shape, it knows where to find you." The shadow turns. You feel it seeing you. not looking, seeing, and then you wake. There's dew on the windshield. Your coffee cup is gone. In its place, a folded napkin, same kind as before, only this one has no writing, just a faint, greasy ring where something circular once sat. You start the car, drive until the building's thin, and the sky brightens into another place, another rule, another reason to keep going. You know now that these laws, these impossibilities, aren't isolated. They're a network, a scattered code stitched across a continent. Laws not meant to protect order, but to hold the seams of the unreal in place. And you're one of the few who've touched the stitches. You've walked where logic ends. You've slept in its corners. And something has followed you back. You're still here. That means something. Maybe everything. You've followed this trail of strange bedtime laws across towns where ice cream becomes contraband, socks are suspect, and statues remember more than they should. You've walked through dreams that feel borrowed, carried napkins that know your name, and stared down laws that weren't written for today, but still know how to find you. You've seen how absurdity holds its breath in quiet places, how small towns keep their myths tucked under floorboards and in the margins of municipal codebooks, how sleep, in all its fragile glory, is never quite as safe or as simple as we pretend. But here's what really matters. You didn't laugh and walk away. You listened. You read the signs, followed the warnings, broke the rules gently enough not to wake whatever they were keeping at bay. You joined a legacy older than logic and stranger than fiction, one where stories become law and laws become lullabies whispered by dusty towns that never quite go to sleep. And now, you carry those laws with you, not as burdens, as memories. So tonight, as you close your eyes, whether in Kentucky or Halter Creek, or a nameless town that only exists between 3 and 4 a.m., remember this. If you dream of a cone, don't pocket it. If you hear hooves behind you, don't turn around. If someone offers you a room with lavender sheets and no clocks, say no. Some sleep stories aren't meant to be told. They're meant to be survived. And if you've made it all the way here, eyes heavy, brain fuzzy, heart just a little more curious, then you've already passed the test. The law remembers you, and it forgives you. Sweet dreams. End of script. Sweet dreams.